Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm Ange, MacCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, whole person leadership facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, Sharon. So echoing what Scott had just said, we're super excited to have you here on the Elevate Business podcast.
Likewise.
Yeah. So tell us more about you. Let's get into this. We talked a little bit in our quote unquote virtual green room that this role for you is super new. Tell our subscribers, what have you been experiencing in the past 6 months and a bit more of your journey in leadership?
Yeah, for sure. So I am newly the COO of Minerva Intelligence, like Scott just mentioned in the intro, and before that, I was not in any kind of management role. In my journey to where I am right now, never really set out to be, in these kinds of positions. I actually started out in what I'll generalize as map making. Starting out in my undergrad, not really knowing what exactly I wanted to do for a living, and picked environmental sciences as just kind of like a catch-all. I like being outdoors. I love the environment. And so that's kind of where I gravitated. And through some of my undergrad courses, we were introduced to the concept of how location, spatial awareness and maps, can be used to tell all kinds of stories from, a data and information like scientific perspective, but also others, right? A lot of thought goes into, just creating those maps, those touristy type maps that you would encounter. So from there, I kind of, got hooked on this design aspect of the maps, but as well as the ability to solve problems. With these maps, and it started off, back in the day, it was the all this digital information, and like Google Maps was not as popular. It was still a major, like a huge career track to have people trace these and digitize this type of information. And since then, we've evolved to now, like it's any kind of digital information about an area, geographic region is readily available. And so you no longer have those jobs, and now there's a shift in the industry where you need to learn about develop more software development skills. And so that was kind of the next step of my journey, was a software developer. Right. Again, learning those new skills to work with maps, now primarily digitally, to solve problems. And once I kind of reached the cusp of that, we started getting into more of the strategy of what makes a good product. Not just mapping, but just in general, what makes a good software product, and all of those experiences combined. I also owe it to a very, very supportive group of people that have had the honor to work with, has really kind of accumulated to this stage of my life where I am now navigating an executive role for the first time. And it's nerve-wracking, but it's also a very exciting opportunity, because I think without that drive or that curiosity to dive into the unknown, I wouldn't be where I am today. So,
right. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, no, sorry, Ange. I was just going to say, I thought it was really interesting how you had to almost reinvent yourself, recognizing that you learned a specific skill set, and then you encountered a situation where, the environment, lack of a better term, kind of changed. And then you had to, reinvent yourself and now adapt to learning better software development. And I think it's something that we're going to continue to see with emerging leaders in the next 10 or 20 years, having to reinvent themselves and having to adapt and kind of change paths along the way and show this kind of resiliency from there. And so I'm curious, within that journey, what role did, I guess, resiliency kind of play, and how's it playing your current role now as COO for the past 6 months?
I think it's really like I mentioned, is the curiosity of learning new things and not being discouraged if you feel like you're uncomfortable, or you find yourself in an uncomfortable situation, or you don't really know what you're doing and you feel like you're unqualified, and just kind of diving forward and giving it a try. And I think the key here is to make progress, and because without that progress and the drive to want progress and to succeed, you're never really going to be able to successfully reach your end goal. And in this case, me trying to reinvent my role and what I want to be doing with the next few years of my career, without that drive to, want to try and try despite failure, and learning from that mistakes, you don't get that resiliency. You kind of just turn back around and try to just kind of coast. And I think it's also something that had just come with this whole digital revolution. I don't know if that's the right word to describe it, but back in the day, it was quite normal for folks to have a job at the same role, same company for decades. And that's become a lot rare. And I think I have been in the business long enough to kind of see that transition where at the beginning, I kind of thought like, oh, I needed to have that 10, 20 years of experience to be considered successful. And with less than that under my belt, it's become apparent that that changing environment has it really needs to be taken into account when people are thinking about themselves as whether or not they're successful or doing the right thing or qualified. It's all about the changing environment, and I think the quicker and easier we learn to embrace that, the better, and the willingness to learn how to embrace it as well. It's not just an overnight thing.
I like where you're going with that, Sharon. And what's coming up for me is, more curiosity with you and for you. When it comes to your evolution and your journey this year, what skills are you looking to sharpen as the COO?
I would have to say focus. So coming from a more, detail-oriented, task-oriented, like software development role, I kind of had a lot of satisfaction from, having a set problem that I had to solve. And to get there was a pretty clear list of things that I needed to do in different iterations. And so it was very clear that, it was just at the end of the day, a checklist of things that I needed to do, aside from the strategy part of it. But at the end, there was, a finite goal. And what I've known and what I'm realizing is that in my new role, you don't really have as much of that. And so it's kind of trying to learn how to focus your attention on what, not only just the individual task items that need to be tackled to just get through the day, but what's going to let you, tackle something bigger, and plan and kind of have that foresight to say, like, if I do this now, is this going to, is this a part of, the greater solution 6 months down the road? Because with my current role, that's kind of where I need to be thinking. I can't just be thinking about, taking it day by day. And so having that focus to make sure you're not kind of getting too far ahead of yourself, because of course there's also day-to-day operational things that you'll need to tackle, and being able to prioritize to do some things and not others. That has been something that I'm still struggling to work on and trying to find a balance, because there is no clear guideline or boundaries, or finite goals like you would in software development, where it's, you know, lines of code. It'll be like, I got 1,000 lines of code. Like, I'm happy. I feel like I was productive today, right? So just kind of learning to accept that and not be too harsh on myself. That's probably the next thing, because I no longer have that feeling of satisfaction by completing X number of codes or features to develop,
right?
Figuring out what does that mean in my current role, and it's been refreshing as well, because a lot of the things that I end up doing are things that I genuinely enjoy, like that I would just happily do in my free time.
Yeah.
And so to kind of be able to connect that with my role as a COO, just makes everything so much nicer. And to be like, hey, I don't have to actually, turn that side of me off during work. I can do a little bit of process and planning as part of my core job, is really nice.
It sounds to me like your definition of focus is really aligning what brings you joy and learning more so how to stretch yourself and continuing to build, as well as, aligning with the operational needs. And that, to me, from a place of vulnerability, is an amazing thing to continue to work towards, especially in our ever-changing world. I'm curious to understand, when you start to think about your team and knowing what has taken place in the past year and currently now, what keeps you up at night with the team?
So the main thing is really, this, and I'm sure a lot of companies are experiencing this, is how do you create a healthy and nurturing environment without being in person? And myself personally, before the pandemic happened, I didn't think that I would be the type of person who would actually really enjoy working from home, for example. And I really enjoyed that, the ability to disconnect. But as the years, I can say years now, have gone on, it's like, I've missed that interaction. And so, and that's just my own personal experience. And I've heard different stories from various members of the team, as well as outside of work. And I think that as human beings, we are naturally social creatures. And so there's no way to, kind of completely remove that social aspect of it. And Zoom fatigue, video calling fatigue is a real thing. So like at the beginning, I kind of thought like, oh, I needed to have that 10, 20 years of experience to be considered successful. And with less than that under my belt, it's become apparent that that changing environment it really needs to be taken into account when people are thinking about themselves as whether or not they're successful, or doing the right thing, or qualified. It's all about, the changing environment. And I think the quicker and easier we learn to embrace that, the better, and the willingness to learn how to embrace it as well. It's not just an overnight thing. So what keeps me up at night is, how do I create an environment that is partially remote, having the option for some social aspect in a hybrid environment, that would, kind of play into and help my team feel like they're a part of something bigger, because it's often hard to feel like you're part of, the strategic decisions, or the decision making, or what your cubicle neighbor might be doing when you're just sitting in front of a screen at home. And this is actually kind of a perfect timing for us, because we're looking at changing how the office space is going to look like. And so having keeping in mind all of those things, like how do you now create an office space that's not just cubicles, and creating those spaces where maybe you're not going to ask people to go into the office on a regular basis just to sit in front of their screens. You're asking them to come in to socialize and have these ad hoc meetings, and it's a comfortable space for them, because I understand there's a different level of comfort as well, if after spending 2 years at home working, and not being used to people in close proximity, for example, having that separation with health and safety in mind, but also I guess the way I'm thinking about it is like kind of like cafe vibes, or a cafe lounge-ish area in the office, to kind of nurture those conversations that you wouldn't otherwise have if you were just sitting in front of your computer. So that's really the number one big thing, and I think it's going to be like evolving all the time. And I think that also with this shift in the workplace mentality, as well as Minerva's entering another phase of growth, and I think with that comes a reevaluation of our company culture, and what does it mean, and what do we value, because I don't think that the previous examples that we've set in place, not Minerva specifically, but I don't think they necessarily translate very well from a traditionally in-person cubicle style workplace to a hybrid or fully remote one. So those are the types of things that are top of mind recently, and I don't think that I'll ever get a right answer for, right? And that's what's exciting about the whole process, is that you get to have these conversations with your team, and try something, and if it doesn't work out, you try something else until those people are happy.
I really enjoy your perspective or your purview on this, Sharon, because it's not a small feat when it comes to company culture, especially right now. And so kudos to you for the thought process of realizing and rationalizing with the fact that there is no perfect answer. The answer for you is continuous conversation with your team members to understand what's going on, what do they need, and how can you meet them with the resources that they need structurally, or from a culture perspective. Go ahead, Scott.
And so you mentioned, Sharon, a little bit about, I guess, shifting gears about the, focusing on the team. What does that look like for the future, and how Minerva is entering into another kind of phase of new growth? What does that look like? And how might you, or how are you looking to kind of adapt to be able to support that growth moving forward?
So that is also the other really exciting part that I personally enjoy, as I hinted to a little bit earlier in the conversation. And it's really this concept of just trying to put into place some processes and tools and systems so that the team can do their jobs better. And I'm trying to figure out a better way to say this, but I think I've done a good job if people are unaware that I kind of exist, because I just want to be able to like feed in tools and gadgets here and there, and if they are like, oh wow, like what's this, they dive in, they use it, and they end up using it like every day, or even just regularly, and it helps them with what they do on a day-to-day basis. That's ultimately what I'm striving for is to have all these tools available for the team to use, and also in a way that is intuitive, automated, and I think that type of I guess that kind of priorities is kind of like what I am trying to keep at top of mind, because with a growing team, you kind of can't do everything manually anymore, which a lot of our processes are. What we're doing is it requires a lot more manpower to do. And so, automate. I would say automating processes, and for me to kind of look at all of these productivity process improvement tools is something that I really enjoy, and to be able to look into that, learn about this new world of I guess operational software, and figure out how to implement it to the team in a way where they enjoy it as well, and they could do the part of their job that they enjoy, and not all of this boring administrative tasks sometimes that we need to do. That's what I would say is the big priority.
Not a small feat, that's for sure.
Yeah. It sounds like easy and simple, but no, it's not.
Yeah, definitely. It comes down to narrowing down what's right for the team. And I liked your description, your approach of kind of, slipping or sneaking things in that are, that help leverage or elevate their job or their tasks and what they're doing. And then also making sure that they're enjoying it. So it's decreasing the admin time, increasing productivity. That's fantastic. When it comes to, I guess, what I would call the peopling side of things, and your leadership, how are you shifting this year to ensure that you show up for your team?
So I think for me, it's outreach. Again, kind of tying back to this struggle of not really knowing when we can all be in the same room together again. I think there's no such thing as too much outreach and too much communication. And so something I'm personally working on is, getting a little bit more involved, and listening. I'm a very good listener, and I think others see me as quite approachable as well. But I can imagine that in the hustling of their day-to-day work, they might not have or might not want to take a break from that and talk to me about something, right? And so I kind of want to be able to put myself out there, have some dedicated time to be able to speak to my team members, and hear their thoughts really about what they feel we need as a company to succeed as we're growing, but also in navigating this shift in the workplace mentality. It's not. We're fortunate to have a small enough team where I can do that, and so I think that's really important for the team to grow, and as we kind of go into this next phase, to hear what everybody has to say, and be able to take all of that feedback into consideration.
Definitely.
That's fantastic, Sharon. No, that really is. And I'm sure we can continue the conversation further. One of the questions we like to ask, kind of coming to a close here, is what are the 3 words of inspiration that you would want the world to hear?
Well, I think the first one would be curiosity. I've dropped that quite a few times in our discussion. The first one would be curiosity. Then I would say patience and love. Yeah, that would be those would be my 3 words: curiosity, patience, and love.
Powerful words.
Yeah, love for words. I mean, if you love what you do, you're able to spread love to others and yourself along the way, then it makes everything worthwhile and ultimately the world a better place.
Wow, that's fantastic. Hopefully you don't mind us boring those words.
Not at all.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for joining us today and helping us understand your leadership journey to date and what's going on in your business world. And we really appreciate your insights with Intuitive Performance and our subscribers.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. For those subscribers who would like to learn more about Minerva, why am I stumbling? Minerva, it's the end of the day. Minerva Intelligence. We're going to provide a link to the company's profile on the Elevate Business Podcast title page. Take good care. Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the Whole Person Leadership Cohort by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious.